All right, we are live. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Campus Cuts. I'm your host, Tanaka Tava, the founder of the Tava Multimedia Group. And today I got a special guest. I have somebody that is literally a pioneer and is teaching and equipping people the gospel, but most importantly, how to be a digital age internet entrepreneur. He's an artist. He's a rapper, heavy in the Christian hip hop scene. He's an entrepreneur. He has his own clothing line. He has his own record label, Keen's Dream Entertainment. If you are new to him, well, welcome. But most importantly, I know from most of my audience, they do know him. RuslanKD, welcome to the show.
Yo, what's up, man? Thankful for being here. Just subscribe to your channel. I'm keeping an eye on the chat. If they see me looking off screen, I'm not trying to be rude. Just make sure we engage as well with the real people who may pull up to this conversation, man. So thanks for having me.
Nah, man, dude, thank you so much for just allowing me to interview you, get a chance to be able to get your perspective. Man, this is crazy because I was telling you and I was telling all my friends, like, I'm actually about to hop on a call with Ruslan. And I just think it's amazing that, one, you gave me, a chance of 21-year-old kid to be able to interview you, bro. I really think that's incredible. It's blowing my mind.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm excited. I like your stuff. I poked around a little bit and I was like, yo, he's doing some dope stuff. So let's make it happen.
Oh, wow. Appreciate that. So, of course, I want you to introduce yourself. So what is your name? What is your occupation? What you're doing? And how did you start getting to what you're doing now?
Yeah. So my name is Ruslan. I cut out. I'm back. Yeah. All right. My name is Ruslan. I'm a hip hop artist, creative entrepreneur. I'm formerly from the former Soviet Union, from a little country called Azerbaijan, Baku. I moved out here as a refugee in the early 90s because of the pogroms of Baku.
Right.
Subsequently, my mom and dad split. I grew up in a single parent home. And then I started to explore hip hop, music and art and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And subsequently put faith in Christ and became a Christian. And so last almost 6 years now, I've been a full-time artist here in Southern California. Full-time artist, creative. I do YouTube. I do music. I do production. I have a couple artists that I work with. And yeah, so that's kind of been the story, the cliff notes of the story. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I've been married almost 13 years. My son is turning 6 in November. And yeah, man, I'm just, doing my best to live God's way and to hopefully honor him in everything I do.
Yeah, man, I think that's honestly amazing. And I've listened to with your podcast with Zuby and just being able to hear that whole story, man. I think it's so wild just to see where you came from and how you navigated your life to where you're at right now, man. And bro, I just want to understand, this is, of course, is a podcast about equity, diversity, inclusion, whatever. And you are legitimately an immigrant. So talk about a little bit of that transition when you came here early on and then living in California and moving and just being able to navigate life.
Well, having an immigrant perspective, not necessarily my perspective, because I remember Soviet Russian quite a bit,
right.
Russia quite a bit, but I don't, I didn't grow up in that reality. I didn't grow up in that environment where, like, my father, who wasn't really in my life when I was a kid, because my mom got divorced, but was like an entrepreneur, hustler in a communist nation, right? Which is really weird to think about. He was smuggling caviar and, exports, import business and doing all kinds of stuff that a lot of people were not doing at that time. And he had money stashed away, American dollars and this whole thing. And so after him and my mom split, I had these two different examples. My dad wasn't in my life, but I knew he went on to build businesses and do really well. But then my mom, because of the trauma from her childhood and the divorce and, feeling abandoned and this whole thing, we went on welfare for 5 years,
right.
Really like the slums, the bottom of the barrel. And it took her a while just to bounce back as a person. And then she got a job, kind of got us out of that area. And so I grew up with this duality, but I didn't quite understand that I was wired to be an entrepreneur until, way later, until I turned 28, 29, that I discovered that the reason why I don't fit into a corporate structure, the reason why I don't do well at jobs is I'm not supposed to be working a job. I'm just not wired that way. Right. I'm different. I think different. I I just view the world different. And I had these two different views growing up. And I think because I knew that, like, yes, we have it bad, but it's still better than it was under a socialistic, communistic government regime. And
Right.
then communism fell, I think 6 months or a year after we came out here, like the Soviet Union collapsed, and capitalism proved to be the victor. And so I think for me, now that I'm an entrepreneur, especially now with technology where it is, with music, with the internet, social media, like, I think this is the best time ever to be alive.
Right.
If you're curious, if you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to develop scarce skills, if you're able to have focus and figure out your perspective on what you're passionate about, and then how to add value to other people. I think this is an amazing time to be alive. So I'm like a kid in a sandbox, man. It's
Right.
a really fun time for me, trying different things. And I'm at that place, by the grace of God, where I don't like, money's not a worry. Like, money's not a very necessarily it's not what motivates me. It's not a variable. It's not something I'm afraid of.
Right.
And that then allows me a ton of freedom to try stuff and go after different ideas and business ventures in my head and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and I really think that's really cool, because I remember watching one of your previous videos and how you were talking about, like, you getting out of your debt journey, right? And I know that with Christianity, like, just the conversation, there isn't necessarily a really good conversation when it comes to financial literacy. It's like,
Yes.
people grow up most of the time just thinking, all right, money is the root of all evil. Shout out to people like Dave Ramsey and Ramesh Rameek and people like you that are changing that narrative. But, like,
Yeah.
how was your relationship with money? Like, this is not even a podcast, but, like, I know that's a big thing, like, a big part of your DNA, you being a creative entrepreneur. Like, you have to think about these things, right? And so what was the transition that changed with that mindset and in dealing with the church and that tension? Like, you know what? No, we don't have to listen to that scripture saying that it is the root of all evil. The love is, but not necessarily the tool to have it to have a good life.
Yeah, well, I mean, that you just nailed it, right? Like, people misquote scripture, right? And people misquote common scripture, right? So the verse says money is a root to all kinds of evil, not the root to all evil, right? And so I think just Christians, and this happened in Jesus's day, where, like, Jesus was trying to liberate people from religious laws, and he didn't come to abolish the moral law of God. He came to fulfill it and to abolish some of the religious laws, right? Which they weren't even in scripture. They were doing is they were taking scripture and they were adding stuff to it. They kept adding stuff to it. And I think we see that specifically with money in our society, is we take it and we say it's either God, right? It's either an idol, or it's completely deplorable and evil. And that's also a very American way of viewing things. America is very black or white. It's very Democrat or Republican, good or evil. It's very just one or the other. And the truth is that, money just amplifies who you really are.
Right.
If you don't have any money and you're a scumbag, if you get some money, you'll be a scumbag, right? And if you get a lot of money, you'll be a really, really, really big scumbag, because you'll have more access to excess. And I think money is a tool, and it's revelatory of who somebody really is at their very core, their very fabric, their DNA. The issue with money, though, is a lot of our money problems can be solved with earning more money. I'll give you a really practical example. Divorce is at 50%, over 50% in America. The number one cause for divorce is money problems and money fights.
Correct.
The logical conclusion, where if more of us weren't stressed out, in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, hand to mouth, we probably have a lot less divorce. Now, I'm not saying we all need to become billionaires, because that's the other extreme, right? But if we all lived in a place where we had money saved, we were able to think about our future, we were able to, enjoy our money, and at the same time give away money, be more generous, I feel like overall people will be more happy. But people will look at one or two. I either got to be poor and money's evil, or money is God and I need to be out. I want to be Jeff Bezos. And it's like, neither one of those are a healthy perspective. Right. And what do the scriptures say? I did a video yesterday about Kanye wanting to become a billionaire to prove that he wasn't crazy, right? And he was trying to prove to himself that he was trying to prove to Jay-Z specifically. So I was trying to become a billionaire to prove to Jay-Z and other people that I wasn't crazy. And I read two verses, right? And they're still pulled up. I'm thinking about Ecclesiastes 5:10. It says, whoever loves money never has enough. whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. And then the opposite, it says in Ecclesiastes 10:19, it says, a feast is made for laughter, wine makes life merry, and money is the answer for everything. The ESV version says, and money answers everything. So money is valuable. Money solves a lot of our problems. Money is important. And now because of technology, we actually are the wealthiest civilization has ever been. Put it this way. We used to die from hunger. We used to die from famine. And parts of the world still do. In America, and by and large the West, we die from too much food. We die from access to excess. We've made food so easy to make, so easy to grow, so cheap to make, that we actually have people that are dying and becoming unhealthy because they overconsume food. That's a byproduct of capitalism, but it's where that access to excess can corrupt us, right? So it's just an interesting juxtaposition of these two different worlds, and they're colliding in real time, right before our time. We're seeing all these things become easier and cheaper to make. What do we do with them? Do we use them to help people? Do we use them to add value? Do we use them to bless our family and be stable? Or do we use them to, do Epstein type stuff and hop on private islands and wild out and be derelicts?
Yeah. And I really think that's such a good point that you even said that, capitalism really does show people for who they are. And like in terms of like the excess, I was actually watching a interview. I'm not sure if you know this podcast, but it's called Earn Your Leisure. These two guys, Rashad Bilal and Troy Millings, they have a podcast about like interviewing different people. And this last podcast that they had released yesterday talked about the food hunger crisis. And we're living in a capitalistic society that is producing like great production, great income. You got billionaires, but to this day, we still got people starving. To this day, people still have no water. To this day that we there's still human trafficking and whatever. And I'm just confused because I was looking at this diagram and it's saying like, okay, the 1% of the United States, it was a diagram in the United States, the 1% of the United States of the wealth, gap, the top 1%, if there was a diagram in the United States, would own 40% of the United States.
Yeah.
40. And everybody else is like a dot. And I think that is really wild. And I mean, shout out to our guy, Andrew Yang, who wanted to try to break that or whatever, do one of his policies. But I don't know, man, like how are you walking through, like whenever you're just like living in society, like, okay, what do you feel like is your calling in order to help, I guess, really combat that in your way?
Yeah, I tend to, and by the way, I was a very huge Andrew Yang advocate. If you go to my Instagram, you could see me at some private fundraisers, and I've met him, and we follow each other on Twitter. So I think at some point a UBI will have to be implemented. I think it just makes sense. I think along with that, which if you think of what's happening with COVID right now, we basically have that, right? We've extended unemployment benefits, I believe, through the end of the year. Don't quote me on that, but I think they just passed that. So we have a degree of kind of a basic income so that these, whatever 10, 20 million people who those jobs aren't coming back, that those people don't starve and are on the streets. So we have kind of what Andrew Yang was presenting to an extent. I think we need to really consider it. The other side of that is I do believe that entrepreneurship, that's probably going to be the solution to a lot of this stuff. So the flip side of capitalism is people who know that money is a game, people who know how to play the game of money, people who know what to do with their money, people who have disciplines built around their money. They're going to win. And I'm winning right now. And I hate, I don't mean to sound insensitive, right? But I'm doing really well in light of everything. And that's because I did intentional things. Like I stopped trading my time for money. I wanted to trade results for money. If I could develop results, if I could get more people to listen to a song, more people to watch a video, more people to be a part of my community, which I offer a lot of value through our Patreon. If I could offer more value, I could get more results. So I did that at the end of last year. I stopped touring. I intentionally was like, I'm not going to do this tour thing unless somebody can pay me enough money to bring my entire family and it's a destination I want to go to, like a New York, Chicago, Atlanta. I'm not going to be touring, right? So I made certain intentional decisions and created new revenue streams for my business that I'm winning right now. My goal is, how do I help other people win right now? How do I help other people structure their businesses, structure their lives in a way where they're getting paid for results, which is huge in entrepreneurship, right? Because I could spend an hour making a beat that generates me 5 figures through sync licenses and streams, or I could spend 10 hours and it generates me nothing. It's about the results. It's not about the amount of time spent. A lot of us we're still thinking linear. We're still thinking like worker bees. We're thinking if I work more, I will make more. And as an entrepreneur, that's just not how it works, because you're gauged on your results and the merit of your ideas and your ability to execute those ideas. Everybody has ideas. Everybody has that thing tucked away. And maybe it's not fully fulfilled yet. Maybe it's not fully defined yet. Maybe it's not, it doesn't have all the variables checked out, but people have ideas inside of them. How can I extrapolate them? And right now, a lot of people are like, yo, I want to make music. I want to do YouTube. That's an easy on-ramp. But I'm telling people, listen, the YouTube and the music is just the marketing for the other product. What's another product you can sell people? What's something else you can provide? I'll give you a great example. One of my buddies, Bartholomew Jones, has a company called Coffee Black, and it's all about educating people about the true origins of coffee. And they import their coffee from Ethiopia. Super dope. Everybody should go follow him. Coffee Black, coffee spelled with an X. And so what he's doing is he's creating a model where it's a subscription method. You can get premium coffee from Ethiopia. You can support a Black small business. And most people who already drink coffee will probably want to learn and educate themselves on how to brew better coffee, how to make healthier coffee, how to save money by not going to Starbucks. He's hitting 4 or 5 different value propositions, and he doesn't need 100 million customers or 10 million customers like Starbucks. He needs a couple thousand, and he's set. He's gonna grow to a 7-figure business. This is happening right before my eyes in the middle of COVID, and I think there are hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses that will emerge. And if I could be that blip creatively, right? Because the music is just an on-ramp. The media is just an on-ramp. If I could be that blip, though, to really help people like turn the tide in their life, I mean, that's ultimately what I'm looking for. Is like, how could I help people create more economic opportunity? Just think different, view things different. That's what I'm after.
Right. And I really think that you are like, I mean, you being on here. Can you hear me? Or did you freeze? All right, he froze a little bit, y'all. Don't worry, we're coming back. We're coming back. Sorry, y'all. You know, we have technical difficulties. This is COVID. Shout out to the Wi-Fi. All right. Well, he did cut out, but he's going to come back right back in. But hopefully you guys are enjoying this episode. Super sorry that, just a little cut out. This is a live broadcast, but hope you guys are enjoying some of these gems. Ruslan is a really, really, really dope guy. You guys need to go follow his content. He's a Christian. He's a creative. He's heavy in the Christian hip hop scene. Follow him at RuslanKD, RuslanKD. Shout out to everybody that is in here, that's interacting, that is enjoying his content, enjoying my content. I'm really blessed that you guys are here. But we're just gonna take a little bit of a time out, but don't worry, it's all good. I think everybody can relate to people having internet issues. Let's see. Page, group, okay. Shout out to Tamani. Thanks for being here, bro. Really appreciate it. Shout out to Miss Sydney Tilger. Shout out Miss Tilger. Really appreciate you being here. Man, we about to get us some good conversation, and I think this is going to be a great podcast for real. Yeah, Jamal. Yeah, that's cool. Gonna post on my story real quick. What's up, everybody? Here, Campus Cuts going live right now. Um, in here with RuslanKD. He's about to come back. We about to come back. So shout out to everybody being here. Campus Cuts Pod. Let's go. How's everybody's day? Oh, my YouTube, man. My YouTube is primarily where I post the podcast. So the podcast is called Campus Cuts, um, Campus Cuts Talk Show, Season 1 and Season 2. You can follow on Apple Podcast, and then Season 3 is featured all over. So this is just me just interviewing all these different types of people. Um, this is what my YouTube page is right now. My friends were like, "Yo, start getting your YouTube page out there. Start doing this. Start putting it up. Start putting it up." Um, so that was pretty much it for the YouTube, my YouTube page. Posted a little bit daily vlogs, but still learning how to. I was going to mention this to Ruslan how um, him being a blimp, he was a blimp for me. Same with Brother Ben X of understanding the digital real estate space. If you want to continue to get your brand in, if you're not you on this alley of entrepreneurship, start getting your voice out there, start creating, start utilizing these platforms just to be able to do something. Shout out to everybody. Wow. Just the first time that this broadcast has ever since I started StreamYard, what, last week? No, this week. First time I got more double digit viewers. It's basically been 0, 3, 5, 6, 7 viewers. So we're in the double digits now. So thanks for coming, y'all. I'm about to log off real quick while he comes in. Remove myself. All right, we back.
My bad, bro. Let me grab a drink real quick.
You're good. You're good. So we back. We back up in this beast.
All right, sorry about that, man. I've been having some internet issues. I don't know what's going on.
Nah, you're good. You're good. But I was going to even say that when you were talking about you being a blip for people to do that, like I said earlier before we got online, like you literally have served as an inspiration. I follow this guy named Brother Ben X. He's part of NOI. Derek Grace, 19 Keys, you, Russ. All about this idea of independence, all about this idea of making sure that you're putting out a product or out there, like utilizing these outlets as a gateway, right? So if it wasn't for people like you, the Campus Cuts would not have existed. Straight up. So I'm grateful that you are doing this and turning the tide, and especially as somebody as a Christian, as a believer, you did it in such a well and acquired taste, and you did that with that vehicle called Christian hip hop. So nothing but props to you right there.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. But I was even then like, how did you even create your how did you even start your journey into hip hop, into that artistry, into that form of trying to get in?
Again, growing up in San Diego, you got hip hop, you got graffiti. This is the 90s. You got we had these Columbia House tapes you can get where for a penny you can get like 8 tapes or something like that.
Right.
So early on, I started getting like the Public Enemy, the LL Cool J, right? Got exposed really young to hip hop, was instantly intrigued by it. And I just kind of lived in an area where that's what we did. A lot of people freestyle, a lot of people kind of made music. Nobody was really like going to a professional studio or anything like that. And so we would just get like karaoke machines. One time, I think the statute of limitations is closed on this, but one time I actually broke into an elementary school, I think, and stole their karaoke machine. And that's how there was like 2 tapes, and one tape was the instrumental, and then you could hold a mic and record onto the other tape. And that's how I started, just kind of messing around on a stolen karaoke machine. And fast forward to, I was playing basketball, and we were all hanging out and kind of goofing around freshman year of high school. And we were like freestyling, and I started to rap and freestyle. And my basketball team, the guys on the team were like, yo, you're super dope. You should really take this music seriously. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And it was right around that same time I discovered that you could have a computer studio. That's what really got me intrigued on computers. I was like, yo, you can build it. You don't got to go to a fancy studio. You can build a studio just if you have the right computer with the right interface. And about a year later, my mom saved up. We got me a computer custom built, and I got my first like home studio, which in hindsight, compared to what I have now, was terrible.
Right.
But that was around sophomore year. Up until this point, I think I'm going to go to the NBA. That was plan A.
Right.
I thought I was going to be a professional basketball player. Yeah. And then I got cut off my junior basketball team. My JV basketball team sophomore year. And right around the same time, I was like, I'm going to give this music thing a shot. Started recording stuff. That was when CD burners were starting to come into play. And I started just kind of making my own CDs, duplicating them out on I find a duplication machine, just started selling CDs around the high school. And it was awful. It was terrible for the first 4 years. And then, I met Belief in like 2005, 2006. We formed a group called The Breaks, started getting in the spoken word scene, kind of packaging that with the hip hop. I was a part of the San Diego Slam team, and it all just kind of culminated in, I think, 2008, 2009, 2010, really as technology started shifting. MySpace blew up. Then you kind of went over to Twitter and Instagram. Podcasting started taking off. That's when we started kind of catching our breaks. And we didn't really set out to be like Christian rappers. It was kind of where we landed relationally and who we already were in this, I guess, the CHH space. And yeah, and it just kind of worked out because it was a micro tribe that was very supportive, and we found our little audience in that world.
Right. And I really think it's good. Going back to like the idea of the business model, I'm not sure. I know this guy I watching YouTube, on Instagram, even had a chance to have a consulting call with him, put on my podcast, Honey Hustle. It kind of it reminded me of, I was watching Chamillionaire's interview, and how he said how he drove up to like Ohio and like his friend to the record store, and like you were on that hustling wave. And at the end of the day, you don't need to appeal to everybody because not everybody will like your stuff. And how you're able to find community. And now my guess was why do you think it's important for people, one, to find community, but specifically for artists to be able to find their tribe and build that tribe? Because we see everybody trying to get signed and whatever, and that's changing now. And I'm still trying to figure out how am I able to cultivate a tribe, a place where people can come in. But why do you think it's valuable for us, and what is the beginning, how to start that?
Well, we're wired for community, right? Like early on, God makes Adam and then he makes Eve, right? It's not good for man to be alone. So that's in the context of marriage, but I think that's just universally we're wired, we're social beings. That's what makes us unique from animals, right? Like a lot of animals can kind of function on their own. We're naturally social creatures. So that I think is huge. And then, to bring it back to your point of tribes, we come from tribes. We don't just come from families. We come from extended families. We come from, communities. We come from, villages. As people, that's just who we are. And so I think now with the internet, if you can figure out how to unapologetically be yourself as honestly as you can be and make something that helps other people, whether that's escapism and just strictly entertainment, whether that's art and music, whether it's a combination of education and entertainment, which is kind of like what I do. I think if you could package that and make it good, right? Like you have to make it good. You have to make sure that your branding is on point. The font point you're using is on point. All these things, right? And so I do spend a lot of time looking at fonts and looking at what designs are hitting. So this morning I woke up and I got an email and I was like, "Ooh, I like this font. Let me screen grab it and go look up what the font is." So I'm always like looking at fonts. I'm always looking at color schemes. I'm always looking at palettes. I'm always looking at stuff. I think you have to know how to aesthetically package something so it looks good and on social media. And then you have to be unapologetically yourself, and those things that you maybe have views that you think are true or you believe are true, but you're maybe afraid to talk. Like my views on money are fairly controversial, like because we live in a binary society. I tend to have very controversial views. Like I'm not a prosperity gospel Creflo Dollar guy, but I despise a lot of the poverty gospel that's been presented, especially in kind of the Calvinistic circles that Christian hip hop came from. I'm either or. That's controversial now. I'm politically agnostic, right? Hence the shirt.
Right.
I don't like Trump. I don't like Biden and Harris. That's controversial now to be like, yo, they're both terrible options. I'm not voting for either of them. What do you mean? You're going to give away your vote? A no vote is a vote. No, it's not. Let's objectively talk about it. Let me educate you about the electoral college. And you may not know how this is all set up, but unless you're in one of 5 states, your vote really doesn't count, if we're honest. In our current system, right? So these are all things I'm just passionate about. I grew up, right, being in my sophomore year and my senior year. I would have these like really, I won't say liberal, but like Democrat teachers who their politics definitely bled into it. And I had these like Republican entrepreneur teachers that they were there because they were bored and they had these massive real estate businesses and they were just teaching because they were bored and they wanted to coach the football team. So they taught a couple classes, and I would get these like really wild, diverse views, and it formed who I am today. Right. How can I share more of that with the world in a way that's aesthetically pleasing? There's lights in here. There's quite a few lights. You may not see them, but there's a lot of lighting in here. There's nice cameras, the right lens so that there's bokeh and that my background looks cool. The right lighting behind me, in a way that's aesthetically pleasing and in native formats. Meaning, I'm not making 10-hour videos for YouTube. Some people could do that. Maybe it'll work. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not making 1-minute videos for TikTok. I'm trying to make a 20-second video for TikTok. I'm respecting these platforms. I'm respecting how people consume on these platforms, right? And so I think songs, I'm not making 5-minute songs right now. I'm making 2.5-minute songs. I'm respecting people's attention. I think it's a culmination of all those things, which is a lot because I just described to you self-awareness. Right. I described to you having good taste. That's important. Right. I described to you understanding platforms and why do people go on YouTube versus why do people go on TikTok, right? Long form versus short form. Right. And understanding how to communicate and to articulate the things that are in your head in a way that fits these 3 or 4 different variables that we're playing with. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, man. But right. It's a long play. It's who am I 10 years from now? If I could do this at 35, goodness gracious, imagine when I'm 45, right? Like imagine how much better I'm going to be at doing interviews, at creating in the moment, right? We're creating something right now. Right. How is that going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years? Because in 20 years from now, I'm 55. I'm still relatively young. People are looking to be 80, 90, 100 years old, right? So that I'm long-term, long game. Yeah. As a creative, right? With hip hop specifically, or even I guess with YouTube to an extent, we put a shelf life. We've put a shelf life on hip hop, right? Oh, well, you can't rap into your 30s. That was the big thing, right? You can't rap into your 30s. Now it's you can't rap into your 40s. Now it's gosh, Jay-Z and Rick Ross and Nas and all these guys have aged gracefully, and they're making fire music. They're making some of the 444 by Jay-Z was my favorite Jay-Z album. He's 49, 50 years old. Dre is 50 years old. Eminem, these guys are pushing. So now that's expanding. Hip hop's expanding. YouTube's expanding. The people we follow is expanding. We want to hear from older people on YouTube to learn from their wisdom, especially if they're successful. I think it all is a longer term play. We want it right now. Right now, what you could do is develop the skills and develop the hustler's mentality and understand sales. Go do it for somebody else, learn on somebody else, and then go bring it back to your business. Learn on somebody else, bring it back. Meaning that, like, say you're doing this podcast, right? And you're doing a good job at it. But I bet you, if you had to do this podcast and work a job, let's just say for $20 an hour, I bet you could do this podcast and go do somebody else's social media, podcast branding, film work for $50 an hour, right? And make more money, make more money working less hours for more time on your business.
And that's the formula right now, right? Because I mean, I can't
absolutely.
Well, let's just say COVID-19 has really opened a lot of things up. I went all in. When I talk about going all in, like, you know, I had everybody like you was doubting me, like, okay, you're gonna start this little podcast, whatever. And I'm like, no, this thing can shift. Like, and it wasn't even that. Like, I remember getting a prophecy when I was like the phone with my girlfriend. We were on the phone. It was a prayer call. This prophet said, you're gonna go into the alley of entrepreneurship, and your next idea is gonna be a big deal. And I said, okay, bet. And I went from this came out of it. And this little idea, me recording in the closet on my iPhone. I mean, leveled up a little bit. Shout out to a computer. But like from there to starting to interview like my friends, my family, this, that, and the third. And then after that, now I'm getting like an opportunity to interview people like you. I get to have opportunity to interview like some like people running for local elections, people that are like, you know, huge on IG, huge on TikTok that are changing the game. And then after that, okay, cool. I got this personal branding. Then I know how to utilize social media a little bit, but also started doing trading, you know, started trading online. Oh, I wrote a book. I self-published a book. I'm planting the seeds. I'm playing the chess game, as you said, to be able to go in. And then after that, you know, what I see, and this is actually a topic I want to go into, not necessarily blow up, but when things continue to get substantial and it continues to grow over time, since I'm very, very young, but I'm still, you know, working at, like, you know, at my tour guide center, still doing, hey, you need a gig for social media? I got you. There you go. This is what I'm going to do. So you're exactly all right about that.
Yeah, and I would say one of the biggest opportunities I think just about anybody could be learning about right now is Facebook marketing, Facebook advertising. And I don't mean literally on Facebook. I mean, Facebook now oversees Instagram and other affiliate channels. So understanding Facebook advertising, Instagram marketing, YouTube advertising, Google AdWords, that is a wide range of people that are going to be hitting the internet, you know, worldwide. And you may not be able to start a podcast today and it'd be self-sustaining in a year from now, but you can start a podcast, learn those skills on you, and go do them for somebody else that maybe they have a platform, but they just don't know how to scale from their podcast to YouTube or their podcast to Instagram, right? And you can help somebody scale, and you can try stuff on them that, like, a lot of people don't even understand how amazing Facebook advertising is, but it's really, 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 really powerful to grow somebody's personal brand, I mean, Facebook advertising, Facebook ads specifically is one of the ways that Columbia Records used to help blow up NF initially, like to get that spark for NF initially. Gary Vee was huge on Facebook ads early on, right? Like, he would take these videos and I remember scrolling through my timeline. It was like every other video was like a sponsored video by Gary Vee. And as creators, we see that and I saw that, I can't speak for yourself, but we see that and we go, ugh, sponsored post. Oh, that's so cheesy. Why, right? But the average consumer is not thinking that. They're just thinking, oh, this came up on my timeline and this is actually a topic I'm interested in. Click. And they see it enough times, they'll eventually follow that person. After they follow that person, they could eventually click on that person's ecosystem. And if you have a product, digital, physical, t-shirt, coffee, whatever, at the end of your funnel, you can really like walk people through kind of like this funnel of exposing yourself to a bigger audience, giving them value and giving them something for free. And then at the piece of merch, if you want to buy a piece of merch, if you want to try this Patreon subscription, right, and having different products available that people could buy into, it's amazing. It's incredible that that's happening right now. And a lot of it is automated and algorithmic, meaning that YouTube is constantly putting me in people's suggested views, but I could also target, and I could put a little bit of money behind it and get different videos to be in front of different people. And so many people don't know this. They don't see it. They don't get it. They don't understand it. And that's what I mean, where like this is going to be something that changes a lot of people's future if they just lock in and educate themselves, get curious, figure out what their voice is. It's really cool.
OTT is what's going to happen over the next 7 years, next 7, 10, whatever. I mean, at this end of the day, like just even with Milan and Disney and how we went straight to streaming and since they can't go to the movie theaters, bro. And then after that, next thing VR, XR, like that's already coming in. Like, okay, cool. I had a friend of mine, he knows he's engineering. He's got his clothing brand, right? He said, you know what? Hey, I need help with an XR VR person to post it on his Instagram how his clothing is in that, like, augmented reality. And so now we have that augmented reality. Okay, shoot, you can even shop from home. And then after that, now you got Amazon. That's just, who Amazon is. It's wild.
It's crazy.
Wild. But hey, you actually touched on earlier back about you being controversial. And now we're in an age of cancel culture. How is it like, you walking with influence? Like you could, it's kind of funny, but I don't want to put you as an influencer, put you in a box, but you do have a lot of influence on a lot of people. How are you navigating through the world in cancel culture world where, you could potentially be canceled for your views? What's your perspective on that?
I tend to have the perspective. I like what Kanye says about cancel culture. What Kanye is like, listen, he's added so much value to the world, whether through amazing music, and he continues to put out amazing music, right? So like he'll put out Yay, and people be like, oh, Ye's kind of whack, and then he'll put out Kids See Ghost, and then he'll be like, oh, Ye's back, he's the best, right? And then he'll put out Jesus King, and they'll be like, Jesus King is whack, and then he'll put out Washed in the Blood with Travis Scott, mixed by Dr. Dre, right? So he keeps doing stuff, and then he'll drop a Yeezy, the 350s, and people be like, and then like you really sit on the 350s, and you're like, whoa, 350, one of the most classic sneaker silhouettes ever, and then he could drop a weird foam posit shoe. They're like, oh, this is kind of ugly, right? So I think from his perspective, he's Ye. You can't cancel Ye, right? You just can't. Like he'll always come back with a product or something that you love so much, that touches culture so much, that you can't cancel him, regardless on if he's, some of his political views in the past have been pretty wild, but when he comes out with that next record, when he comes out with that next drop, when he comes out with that next thing, you're just kind of like, oh man, like all is forgiven. Why? Because he's offering so much value to the world. And people think like shoes are super fit. No. Like it's transcending. Like the 350 transcends culture, transcends politics, right? It's something that you touch enough people, or you have enough depth with enough people, and all is forgiven. So cancel culture, I think it has its place, right? Like if somebody's like a pedophile, right? Like you're just gonna forgive that, but like I don't, there's a time and a place for it, I guess, right? I don't know exactly the balances and the nuances of it. I say all that to say though, cancel culture can have its place. There's certain people that we should dismiss, but the people I personally cancel and from my consumption, right? This is my consumption, not anybody else's. Right. Like I'm not clicking on Tekashi 6ix9ine. I don't care. I'm done. Like, I'm just not, right? I'm not listening to WAP. I have not heard WAP. I have not heard WAP by Cardi B. I have zero desire to hear that song. I think it objectifies women. I think it's whack, right? What it represents. I'm just not listening to it. You can tell me it's about the liberation of women. And no, it's not. I'm not right. So there's certain things that I've personally chosen to check out from, but it's not the things that society or culture as a whole would check out from, right? So it's cool that you could have the choice to avoid certain things. I don't care, because at the end of the day, I'm going to offer so much value to people that even if they disagree about a, nuanced political view I have, or they disagree about a business view I have, or a scriptural view I have, the overall tone will be, yeah, man, but look at how much good he's contributed. Right. I could disagree with him on this one thing over here. And I think that's how you avoid getting canceled, unless you're just like a complete scum I don't know, raping women or doing or like just doing wild stuff, you avoid being canceled by offering value and also just not being a complete scumbag. I don't think Kanye is a complete scumbag, so he's never going to get canceled because he's
Right.
coming from a genuine place, even if he's misunderstood or I may disagree with him on some stuff. By and large, I think he's doing really much more good for the world.
Right, right. And especially, with him building the homeless shelters, him like, trying to bring back his view of trying to bring back um manufacturing and production here. And this is my opinion. I think that with him, that was the reason why he kind of supported Trump and the idea of him. I think that's what I watched the whole Nick Cannon view, and I was really interesting that, we live in the world where you can get a little bits and pieces, and then after that, that goes viral, and then everybody's like, no, you're trash, like whatever. And maybe people just need to listen. And I think that's the reason why, and that's even the reason why I even started this thing, because I feel like there's not enough long form conversation, especially like for Generation Z, people like me that are here growing, whatever, like, because we're now living in a culture that's like our attention span is getting smaller because of psychologists really working with these huge media companies
Right.
to make sure that they, like, hey, okay, we're working on this to get them addicted, to make sure they have these taglines. People are not reading anymore. They become more ignorant, isolate, and then after that, I personally think what's going to happen is if there's not a change or a shift in the culture in terms of more mindfulness and more an ability to try to get away from our phones, we're going to end up like the movie Wall-E. And I really think that it's either going to be Elon or it's going to be Jeff Bezos, going to be that president with that huge corporation, right? And we're going to live like in a Wall-E society. Like, it's already happening. We got the AI coming in, Andrew Yang saying like, yo, your jobs are going to be replaced by AI. Like, it's happening. I was out in Cali like a couple months ago, saw an AI robot. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. We're living in such a incredible, amazing world if you know how to play, but people are not necessarily preparing themselves. And I don't know, it's just woo.
Yeah, I think if you learn how to play the game, you learn how to listen, you learn how to think. Another thing with like our education system, like our education system is forcing people what to think instead of teaching people how to think. And that can be problematic, right? So if somebody's going to college, a lot of it is like in straight indoctrination, like it's full on indoctrination into specific political ideologies, social ideologies, and you're not being forced to critically think and figure out what do I think about this thing? Like what are my views on automation and technology, and what are things that will get automated away, like truck drivers, and then what about other jobs? Well, like I don't know if we're going to automate away plumbers and hairstylists and hairdressers. I don't think those jobs are going anywhere. So if I'm a blue collar guy, I'm not a creative guy. Maybe that's the direction you go. Maybe you don't go and get an accounting job, which is getting automated in real time because of QuickBooks and all these things that are happening. Or maybe you go learn the technology and you go do somebody's books for, as there's more like a practical, hey, I want to be an accountant, but you're not going to be a traditional accountant. So maybe you partner with a QuickBooks. And now that we have, I don't know, 200-300 new influencers exploding every year that don't know how to do their taxes, don't know how to do their books. Maybe you go and charge $300 per influencer and have 20 influencers, that you do their right. So you leverage a QuickBooks and you leverage the automation for your benefit. So I think there'll be more and more like secondary and third industries like that pop up as a byproduct of automation.
Right.
And but again, that forces somebody to be curious. That forces somebody to think critically. It forces somebody to pay attention to where culture is shifting and how to step in and take advantage of it instead of being victim to it, right? So if you're a truck driver right now, you should be considering, what are you going to do different? How is when we do have driverless cars everywhere, and let's just call it 15 years. Let's be generous. Let's say 15 years. What are you going to do, right? When Amazon has drones dropping off packages if you're within 30 minutes from a warehouse, which is like they're rolling that out right now.
Right.
What are you going to do? If you're an Amazon driver, how are you going to evolve? How are you going to pivot? Are you going to learn how to fly a drone? Maybe that's the solution to it, So I think in all these things, we have to be willing to be flexible, be willing to adapt, be willing to learn. And I just think that's the flip side of all this technology is it's way easier just to turn on Netflix, check out, spend countless amount of times in escapism instead of actually learning something.
Actually learning something, man. Because I'm a college student, right? last year. But I don't know. After COVID, it was like, man, me and my friends were like, bro, why are we in school? Because like this was what was told to us. Is this was like what we had to do? Like we had to follow a path. You know, I come from an immigrant family. Like, you know, go to school, get good grades, do this, do that. Like then after that, but my dad is an entrepreneur. But he said, like, of course, you know, get the education, balance it, leverage it, whatever. But sometimes I'm like, man, I don't know. It's quite surprising to see how all these institutions and they don't get taxed and they're still. Well, what's your opinion on college institutions still putting the same price in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I think that's trash, man. And I think if you look at everybody's afraid of inflation right now, right? Inflation, right? Well, the things that are most impacted by inflation, meaning the areas that we've seen the most amount of inflation, and I think we'll see continuing inflation in is, and this is according to Andrew Yang and from everything I've researched, is education, healthcare, and housing, right? Education, healthcare, housing. Education hasn't gotten better in the past 20 or 30 years. They've just hired more admins and they've created more bureaucracy and they've created more like meaningless employees at these colleges, right? So the cost has gone up, and it's gone up really because the student loan crisis is happening, meaning people are taking out student loans. It's monopoly money. They don't know that those loans are federally insured. They're going to get that money from you one way or another. It's one of the few forms of debt, that and IRS debt, that you can never file for bankruptcy. You can never get rid of it. It's going to stay with you for the rest of your life, right?
Wild.
So think about how this is now affecting two of the three most crucial markets: housing and education. I don't have to care about how much I'm paying for school because I'm just going to get a federally insured student loan. So yeah, forget it. Keep raising the tuition. I don't care. I need an education and I need a degree. So I'm just going to pay an inflated amount versus if you were paying out of pocket, like people did 30, 40 years ago, and you were working a job on the side, hustling, bussing tables, earning tips, you probably would be way more sensitive to the fact that education keeps rising in cost, right? And then you look at housing. So like we live in an area in San Diego, right, where it's getting gentrified. I mean, all of San Diego has gotten gentrified, but we're getting gentrified right now in real time. We have one of the lowest performing elementary schools right next door to us. We homeschool my son, and the school next door is like one of the lowest performing schools in the state. And there's two old apartment buildings that they just like painted these bright colors, and they're charging $2,200 a month in rent in these like old buildings from like the 60s and 70s because they repainted them and redid. Now, why are they charging that much? Is it because the person living in this area can actually afford $2,200 a month? For context, we pay between $1,500 and $1,600 a month for rent. That's where my rent is. And literally, these places are like, I'm not even a football field away from me, right? Like they're right across. $2,200 a month. Why? Because there's stupid college students who are taking out stupid student loan debt that they're never going to be able to file for bankruptcy and get rid of it, that they're willing to pay $2,200 a month, which is an outlandishly inflated amount of money for this area. It's screwing up the housing market for people who really want to live here or are from here. And it's screwing up the education system. Why? Because we're giving 18-year-olds $100,000 or $50,000 on an education that doesn't really cost that. So the federal government is insuring this stuff, right? So how do we fix it? I don't freaking know how we fix it. I'm not going into debt. If I'm a college student, I'm not taking out loans right now. I'm not living above my means. I'm not living off of debt. I'm not playing that game personally. And I did play that game, and I had to pay off all my student loans, and I'm in a much better place because of it, right? So I think that's how we have to start thinking about these things. Is like, yo, inflation is real, but it's real because we're propping up these different industries and we're enabling poor management of properties, right? And we're enabling poor education because the government is federally insuring all of these different things and through the financial loan system, right? Like if you were to say, hey, I want to start a business, nobody's giving you $150,000 to start a business right now.
No,
but they'll give you $150,000 to go and get a degree in underwater basket weaving. You know what I mean? Like, how does that make any sense? Like, how does that make any sense to give an 18-year-old or 20-year-old $100,000, 6 figures to go spend money on education? They're not checking on if this is a profitable major or not, that if there's a job market for this, here's $100,000. Yeah, go live it up. And now you got all these kids graduating with useless diplomas. They didn't really learn how to think. They were indoctrinated, right? And they didn't really pick up relevant skills because the guys who are teaching a lot of these business courses or marketing courses aren't actual practitioners. When I went to college for music, I was, by the time I got to my 4 year, I went to a junior college. By the time I got to my 4 year, my local state school, I was teaching the professors because I had real world experience of putting out music. They were like, how do you do this in Pro Tools? How did you do this? Can you come speak to the class? Like, why am I teaching your class for you? Right? Because you're not a real practitioner. Right. You are a theorist. You aren't really in the music industry figuring out how to make money and how to make music efficiently and cheaply so you can provide for your family. That's what I was that's where I was going to school. So that's what I'm saying. Like, the whole system is flawed, and it's going to increase that wage gap because we're being told that you need a college degree. You don't need a college degree. You need an education. You absolutely need an education, but you can develop in it. Like, what's your major right now? Are you a media major?
No. I'm a neuroscience and theater arts double major with an entrepreneurship minor.
Okay. So let's just say an entrepreneur, like, just call it entrepreneurship, right? Theater arts, entrepreneur. My major was visual and performing arts with a track in music.
Right.
What would be more valuable for you? To go and intern to somebody that's running a podcast with 100,000 subscribers, right? And to figure out a way to work for them for free for 4 years and learn everything you can about their business, or go do your degree?
The first option, because you're getting that real world experience. But then we've been conditioned to go for that 4-year degree. I was like, what the heck?
Exactly. You would be way better off going and interning for, I don't know if you're familiar with like Belief in Fatherhood, but like you'd be way better off going and interning with Belief for 2 years or 1 year, and learning everything you can and absorbing everything you can about his business and how he runs everything and working for free than you would to go and pay to college. And you would probably come out of that equation with relationships, a network, skills, right? All these different things that position you to either launch your own thing or go work with other people. And I know a ton of people doing this without college degrees right now in real time. Like, I know dozens of people doing this without college degrees and making more money than people coming out of college with these degrees. Now, the only caveat to this is if you go to a like prestigious school and you join a fraternity or a sorority, right? So like my brother went to USC, he joined a fraternity. USC has a very closed network system. If you go there, you join a right frat, you're set up for life based on the network alone, right? There are those situations, which those situations are valuable. So my brother's crushing it. He's out of college a couple years. He's working at a startup. He has equity in the startup. He's making outlandish money for somebody his age. And that's because he went to the right school and was in the right frat. Right. That's a bit different. Most people aren't thinking, I want to get to the right school with the right frat so I can build the right relationships that will set me up to do something entrepreneurial.
Right. And I mean, like, and that's actually honestly like my case too, because I am in a fraternity I'm able to do that because I also was able to see that. And my dad was like, yo, you should really, consider thinking about joining an organization, Alpha Phi Alpha, shout out to the 06. And I'm like, okay, great, dope. And I'm still now trying to figure out and find my wave and weaving my way out. Right. And I'm like, okay, that's dope. That's amazing. That's great. Let's continue to build that. But I definitely think it's so crazy to see how I remember seeing the tweet. Most people will be celebrated for getting $100,000 loan. Then when after that you say, hey, I started my business and I've got 50K from the bank. Nobody celebrates that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's kind of like disheartening because I'm like, oh shoot. I mean, because that's what we've been told. And now my question about the idea of like celebrating, we're in a world where I was having a discussion with a friend of mine. It's like we live in a world that celebrates our friends and our families celebrate people, celebrate celebrities more than their actual people around them. How have you experienced that, and how have you walked through that in your creative journey, and then finally, like, not necessarily proving them wrong, like, okay, guys, what's up? But because I'm to be quite honest and candid, I'm in a situation like, damn, bro, like I'm busting my butt, and it's just like, but y'all will go buy a celebrity's thing off rip. But then when it comes to your friend, like, hey, man, I want a discount. Or, hey, man, can you do this for free? Or, hey, man, can you do this? Did you experience that throughout your journey growing up in your artistry? And what is even your opinion of people, like, gawking over celebrities?
Well, what celebrities have is they have leverage through social proof. So when we think of leverage, we think of credit, right? Leveraging money, right? We're leveraging money to scale faster, right? Or we're leveraging people, human capital to scale faster. Well, what celebrities have is they have leverage through social proof. Any product you build now today needs one of those three. You either need a ton of cash flow, a loan of some sort, cash flow, right? Or you need a ton of people, labor, right, to build the widget or build whatever you need to. Or you need leverage through social proof. You need leverage through technology, through an identity online. So, yeah, how can you develop similar social proof? That becomes the question. People don't ask me to do stuff for free anymore because I have a degree of social proof. And I'm not even that popping, right? Like I got 23,000 subscribers on YouTube. If I'm honest, I thought I would be way further along than I am based on the amount of hours I put in. But because I have good amount of views, I don't get hit up to, hey, come do this show for free. Hey, can you go do this for free? Right? I just don't. People can't buy my time anymore. They just can't. If I'm going to do something, I'm either doing it because I want to and I believe in it, or because like I'm not doing it. There's just literally one of two options, right? Or you're going to pay me my going rate, whether if it's for a feature or for a show. My going rate is high because, again, I'm not trading time for money.
Right.
So I think the question becomes, this is human behavior. People are gravitated towards success. Or the perception of success. People are gravitated towards social proof. This is popular, therefore it's good. That's just how most people think, right? How most people think. The outliers think, well, what's the best quality product out there? What's the best quality product out there? What's the most valuable resource out there, regardless on if it's popular or not, right? That's a creative thinker thinks that way. So I think the question is, again, you got to get back to playing the game. How do you play the game in a way that creates social proof for yourself? How do you get your YouTube subscribers up, right? How can you run ads from Instagram or from Facebook to get people to your YouTube? Could that work? Could you, right? And so now if you're sitting on, let's just throw out 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, your Instagram following is pretty decent. I think you got like 15, 17,000 on Instagram, and you have a certain degree of perceived success, not fake success, like not like go buy followers, but like perceived success. Like, and there's a certain degree of social proof. You are going to be viewed different, and then people are going to be willing to give you a shot. Friends are going to be willing to give you a shot. What I did is I had a workaround. My workaround was I was very direct, and I casted the vision to my friends and family that, listen, I need you to do this favor for me. What's the favor? I need you to buy this concert ticket. Matter of fact, I need you to buy 3 concert tickets. I need you to bring some friends to the show. I need you to pre-order this album for me so we could chart on iTunes. And I would go around and I would get 300-400 people to buy a ticket to the House of Blues, and we'd sell 200 tickets online from like fans, right? Like people just pulling up to see the show. They don't know me. And 300 of those people will be friends and family. I'm talking like I'm selling my dad a ticket, right? Like I'm selling everybody a ticket, right? And what happened? Social proof. My fans came and said, gosh, I just saw Lecrae here 2 months ago, and he only had 300 people, and Ruslan has 600 people. Goodness, he's killing it for San Diego, right? My fans thought that, and then my family thought, wow, there's 600 people here. I don't want to say fabricated, but I finessed social proof. And the more you can develop social proof, the faster people will take you more seriously and be willing to give you a shot. But till this day, best believe if I got another show coming up or I'm trying to do some big thing, I will hit up friends and family and be like, look, we need this room full. Like, can you do me a favor? What's the favor? Listen, I need you to buy 2 tickets. It's going to be $30. I could drop them off to you. Right. I do that all the time, bro. I have no problem with that. So I think if you're launching a product like say somebody needs 10 grand and they're like, yo, I need $10,000 to buy this next thing to get my business to grow. Should I take out a loan? I say, no, don't take out a loan. Go make 500 t-shirts and sell them at $20 a pop. And you got your 10 grand. Do you know 500 people that'll buy a t-shirt from you? Oh, I don't know. Okay. Do you know 400 people that'll buy a $25 t-shirt from you? I don't. Well, okay. How about you and your wife and your friends just sit down and make a list of every single person you know and hit them up and ask them personally, hey, I need help. Can you do me this favor? It would mean a lot to me. Most people want to support their friends and family when they know what the vision is. If they know what the vision is, they want to support their friends and family. We be too prideful to ask. We don't know how to ask. We don't know how to cast vision. And so, boom, I've had people do this. I've had people literally walk through this process, sell a couple hundred t-shirts. That becomes their launch fund. They launch with that money. Now they got that money off the ground. Then they learn Facebook advertising and actually go build like a cold audience through lookalike ads, through leverage on social media, through leverage of media, videos, whatever. And that boom, now the village, I mean, your literal village, the people you grew up with, people that you love, have, your friends and family put you on. And I recommend that before getting a loan. So to answer your question, why do people not support their own? A lack of social proof and a lack of leverage through technology. If you can figure out social proof, then you can do just about anything,
That's actually a great perspective that you said about that, man. That's really dope. That's really good. Wow. I'm taking that's all mental notes right over here. That's really good. I'm taking it all in. Hopefully,
so the question is, how can you build your numbers up in a way, real numbers, in a way that makes you look established, right? How can you build those numbers up, right? So you've done that on your Instagram. Which is why I'm doing this interview. Like people reach out to me all the time for Instagram, but I looked and I was like, oh, okay, this dude has real followers with real engagement. This will be worth that. This will be worth my time. And then if somebody else that reached out and they got like 50 followers on Instagram and 20 YouTube subscribers, I'm not really into doing that interview, right? Like it doesn't really value me. How can you keep building your numbers up in a way where there's more social proof? And again, I'm not advocating for buying followers. There's other ways to do it. How can you do these things and figure out how to grow your YouTube faster? Figure out, right? The more social proof you have, the more people are willing to give you a shot.
Right. That's dope. And that's love. That's all love. Wow. And you put up a video real quick about Joe Budden and leaving Spotify. And I actually haven't got a chance to watch it. I was supposed to be on my watch list, my YouTube playlist after I was done with school. But why is that important? That like Joe Budden, because everybody's now getting, I was telling all my friends, if you have an opportunity, start podcasting. I don't care what you're doing. If it's a 5-minute podcast, if it's an hour-minute podcast, because that is like voice is next. Because if you're looking at the marketplace, you look at Alexa, you look at Google Play, all this, voice is going to be the next big thing. And if you're trying to build up your little makeup brand, you're trying to build up something, you're trying to reach an audience, like just because people are going to be interested in what you think, what your mind is, all that. But like, that's crazy that they're giving $100 million deals to Michelle, Kim, Joe Budden. I'm like, dang, people are getting paid for this. I believe that I might get paid just to do this one day, manifesting and praying about that. But why was like, that's a big move for Joe Budden to leave. And would you want to sign a contract like that?
Well, so Joe Budden, what happened with Joe Budden is they offered him in the initial deal, I don't think was as lucrative as some of the new deals that are coming out with the Joe Rogans, the Michelles, right? So Spotify gave Joe Rogan 100 million. They gave somebody else 250 million for more like a whole platform, like a whole network of podcasts. So Joe Rogan's deal is the ideal deal. He has a licensing deal that it's a few years, and they're going to migrate the whole podcast over to Spotify. Spotify, by the way, now launched a video option just for Joe Rogan, which is really crazy to think about. They didn't do video before, so now there's a whole YouTube option. And eventually that podcast will be exclusively available on Spotify for 2 years. And then they own everything. What was different about Joe Budden's is it kind of started that way. The numbers were lower, and then they hit their bonuses, but didn't really hit their bonuses apparently. And then they were like, we want to own everything outright, not just license it. We want to own you. We want to own your spinoff shows, and we'll give you 50 million or 100 million or whatever. And so, listen, the lifestyle quality from making 150 grand a year to 250 grand a year isn't that different. The lifestyle quality from making 5 million a year to 10 million a year isn't that different, right? So if I can make, let's just call it $1 million a year. I can make $1 million a year, right? And I'm a simple man. Or I can make 10, 15 million off of this one deal, but I don't own the intellectual property any longer. Why would I go get the 10, 15? My lifestyle isn't going to change that much, right? Like, and so I think that's, we got to consider that is you get to a certain degree of financial success. And according to the stats, there's actually diminishing returns if you don't know what to do with the money, meaning that if you don't have a plan for your money and you're not Kanye trying to build new orphanages and build supply chains to bring more jobs back to America so people getting out of prison can make a livable wage creating. If you don't have that kind of vision and you come into $10 million a year or $1 million a year or whatever, that can destroy somebody, right? And so they found doing studies that at a certain degree nationally, it's a little different LA and San Diego, but at a certain degree, they say after you make 80 grand a year per household, that the more you make, the less happy you are, right? And I would say that's because people don't know what to do with the money at a certain point. If you drive the car you want, you live in the house you want, you don't have to worry about money. What do you do with it? If you don't have a plan for that, now you just have access to excess. Now you just have access to doing more things you normally wouldn't get to do. And that could become really complicated, become a burden on somebody's marriage. So when you look at a Joe Budden, like Joe Budden can make, let's just say 2 million a year doing the podcast on his own, which I think is, he probably makes that off of AdSense. If I take a wild guess, right? Like I know YouTubers with 750,000, 800,000 subscribers that make 6 figures off of YouTube a month, right? That's an insane amount of money to make 250K, 200K a month off of YouTube AdSense. We're not then talking about any live shows. We're not talking about any merch. We're not talking about any courses. We're not talking about anything else but AdSense. Do you need more money? Does somebody need $100 million? Unless they have a legitimate plan for $100 million. Kanye wants to build $1 trillion company.
Right.
He wants to build the next Amazon. He wants to build the next Apple. That's different than Ruslan. Like, I don't desire to have a company with 10,000 employees. I got zero desire to have that much headache, right? Zero desire. I want to live comfortably. I want to come and go as I please. I want to take care of my family. I want to go on vacation where I want to go on vacation. I want to have the house in the city I want to live in. Maybe have a couple rental properties. Right. So I would never sell my intellectual property, my catalog, my masters for a quick come up, because it doesn't really change my quality of life. Here's some real deal. Have you ever heard of the FIRE movement? The FIRE movement?
Yeah. When everybody
financially free, what is it? No, financially independent, retiring early. It's a movement of kids that figure out how much they want to live on. They hustle. They figure out a way to make 100, 120 grand a year. They live off 30 grand a year. They do the math. And, I don't remember the exact numbers, but like approximately, I'm just gonna throw out a number. If you have $6 million in the bank, approximately, or 5 million, just call it $5 million in the bank, that can generate 200K a year in passive income for you indefinitely.
Right.
Indefinitely for the rest of your life. So you know what the goal is, how much you want, the quality of life you want to live. And you say, man, if I can get to that number, then I could be self-sustaining off of my investment indefinitely. Now, granted, the market is going to go up and down. That's really powerful. So you don't need that much money to live a $200,000 lifestyle a year indefinitely. You need 5 million in the bank. And they create these little formulas that if you work from 20 to 30 and you live off of 30 grand a year, but you figure out a way to make 120 grand a year, by the time you're 30, you have 5 million in the bank and you can indefinitely live off of 200 grand a year, 150 grand a year. I'm using less numbers. I don't know the exact math, but it's in that ballpark. How much money do you really need? How much money do you really need? Like, the food doesn't get any better. Right? At some point, the food doesn't get any better. The cars don't get any nicer. The house can't get any bigger. Or if it's bigger, it's just more of a headache to maintain it. Your influence, at some point, your influence gets so big. Now you got to hire security. Now you got to have armed security with you. Or now you got to get a concealed permit and carry a gun on. I know people going through this in real life. Like, I know celebrities who are like, I got to get a concealed permit and carry a gun all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we've seen what happened to Nipsey. We've seen these situations that have happened. So you got to count the cost and say, man, Joe Budden is right. He doesn't need, what do you need $100 million for? Unless you're trying to build the next Apple, unless you got the vision to build the next Amazon. You don't need 100 million. You don't need 50 million. You could probably, the average person who's just a creator, entrepreneur, they get 10 million a year. You're set indefinitely. definitely to live the rest of your life forever off of 250,000 a year. You're good. How? Because you could put that money in growth stock mutual funds, and on a conservative rate, they can generate 10% interest for you. So if you got 5 million a year, they'll generate 500,000 a year indefinitely, right? That's amazing. That's incredible that our economy is set up that way. A lot of these things is just figuring out the math. What do you want? What kind of quality of life do you want, right? So I say all that to say why Joe Budden is important, because he's saying, F you, I don't need your money. I'll own it myself, and I'll do it my way, and I'll be happier. And I think that's commendable. I think that's super, super dope. Because again, at some point, it's not worth it. At some point, there is access to access, too much celebrity, too much money, too many opportunities to go and wild out, to go and cheat, to go and step out on your wife, to be a terrible father. And I'm cool. Like, I don't need that much attention. I don't need that many girls sliding into my DMs, right? Because they think I'm a sexy dad. Like, this stuff starts happening at a certain level, man. And it's not lit. Like, it's not cool. You know what I mean? So you got to cut off some of that. You got to cut off some. What do you ultimately want? What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? Like, I want to drive a Tesla X. That's it. I don't need $1 million car. I want $100,000 car. That's it. That's as high as I'm going to go. I want to have $1 million home. I don't need a $10 million home. I'm fine with $1 million home. I want my family around. I know exactly what I want. I'm reverse engineering the steps to get there. I think everybody should do that. And it sounds like Joe Budden has done that. And then there's other guys that maybe Joe Rogan wants to build multiple businesses and he needs that $100 million. And he has no problem with having to have hired security and having to be super low key and keep his, his whereabouts private. He's used to being a celebrity. I don't think being, Robin Williams said, was it Robin Williams? I think he said, I wish it was either Robin Williams or Jim Carrey, but they said, I wish Jim Carrey, I wish everybody can be rich and famous for one day so they could figure out that it's not all it's cracked up to be.
It's not like, it's not because I know it, but, you just see how jaded. I mean, like, even Lecrae mentioned, like, in Restoration, that album was just so vulnerable. It's like, bro, like, I don't know, like, it's not it. Like, everybody has said, like, that is it. Man, fame is very tricky. Fame is,
and for context, like, since you brought up Lecrae, I was around Lecrae during some of those darker seasons. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to go into details, but I was around some of the stuff he was talking about. Not like me and him are best buds, but we'd be in New York together and I'd pull up to a restaurant, he'd be there and we'd hang out, or I'd be in Atlanta, we'd be there, right? And I've seen him go through that stuff in real time. And that is what made me go like, yeah, I'm good. Like, this is a bit too much for me. I don't need 1 million Instagram followers. I don't need that much attention. I don't, you know what I mean? And I don't know if he really set out for that. I think he just kind of landed in this place. I think he wanted to be successful, but he landed in this place. And now he's like, well, gosh, this came with a lot more burdens than I factored in. And, he's figuring it out. And I think he's doing a great job by and large. And I think he's a good dude. Like, that dude is a genuine good dude, is very self-aware. But that's a great example. I mean, that album, Restoration, those of you guys that are wanting to be rich and famous for the sake of being rich and famous, like, go listen to Lecrae's Restoration album and you'll figure out that it may not be what you want. You may want financial freedom, but you can get financial freedom without being famous.
Right. So now let me ask you this question. What does it mean to be free? What is freedom for Ruslan? I
think freedom for me is like, can't nobody tell me what to wear. Can't nobody tell me where to be at any specific time, right? And I don't mean to sound arrogant, but you're not going to tell me to put on a collared shirt. You're not going to tell me to, you know what I'm saying? Like, how I can or can't wear my hair. You're not going to tell me, right? Like, right. You're not going to tell me where I have to be. Nobody gets to tell me where I have to be besides my wife. My wife and my son, only people that get to tell me where I have to be. I think financial freedom is that whenever somebody can tell you where you have to be, whenever somebody can tell you what you have to wear, you're not free. You're not now. Do I choose to maybe put on a suit for somebody's wedding? Sure. Yeah. Right. Or if somebody asks me, hey, can you come speak at my church? And I wear a collar, I'm choosing to do that. But ain't nobody, and I'm not doing that for money, by the way. So I think financial freedom is nobody tells you where you have to be. Nobody tells you what you have to wear. Nobody makes you trade your time for money. And that, to me, that is freedom. And my next goal, like, and I'm there, but my next goal is like, I want to own a paid for home. I want to own a paid for home that I don't have any mortgage on, that now my overhead literally goes to nothing. Yeah. My overhead is fairly low now, but if I own my property outright, I own my cars outright, which I do, I'm there. I don't need that much money to live, and I could reinvest and give back. So I got a good friend of mine that, planted a church. I really want to be a part of that. I really want to help him get that church off the ground. There's artists that I really want to invest into, and I don't want to feel like I got to recoup that money like a label does. I just want to, hey man, you come over here, you work with me, you got 20 grand a year to make sure all your bills are paid for. And that's not recoupable. I'm not earning that back. And we'll just split the revenue 50-50. Like, I want to create new models for how artists can get their music out, right? As long as they're willing to work hard and engage in technology. And that requires me having less overhead, not having a mortgage, not having any rent. So that's like my next, like where I'm trying to get to in the next 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Like, I want to own a home outright in the area I want to live in with my family close by. And that would be my next level of freedom, right? And then there's a degree of like enough passive money, passive income, and your overhead being so low that it's just like FU money is what they call it. Like,
Right.
you can't tell me anything. You can't cancel me.
Right.
I'm good. You know what I mean? Even I lose all my subscribers tomorrow, I'll figure out a way to still provide for my family.
Exactly. And so now, in the sense of that, you were like, you are an independent artist, you are an independent whatever, and now you have a record company. That's the one thing I was kind of like, I've always been wondering, like, okay, so how does an independent artist have a record label company, then put artists under their company, but then like, do they teach them the same formula of them being independent, or they want to continue to be signed or whatever? Because most companies, label companies, like keep their masters, like and Michael Jackson, Prince, warning about all these like things, like, oh my gosh, like if you're in the music business, don't sign that contract. But then like for you, like, is there like a double consciousness, like, okay, man, I'm about to sign this kid to the label, but I don't want to screw them over. Because I was like, okay, that was the disconnect. I'm like, is he teaching them and grooming them to continue to be independent, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. So initially, I started a quote unquote label because I saw a need to leverage my platform. Remember, we talked about leverage and social proof. To leverage my platform, leverage my experiences, my relationships to help other people build audiences and platforms. That was initially why I started that. And then that's kind of evolved a bit over the years. And so now it's more so I've created systems and I have certain specific knowledge that I think I could pass on to people and help them get there faster. Meaning that if you partner with me on something, and it is ultimately what it is, it's a partnership, right? I tend to hold down the majority of the cash flow and the expenses, and then we split the back end 50-50 and we own it together. We own the master together. Now it's more so like I got systems and I have a specific sound I'm trying to get out there. So if I could find creative synergy with somebody, and I can create creative synergy with somebody and plug them into systems, that is what I'm much more passionate about than initially, which it was like, hey, let me just, help somebody get to at least where I'm at, stand on my shoulders. They can go further than I am. Now it's like, yeah, I really want to create systems, and I really want to create artists that I have a creative synergy with. So like me and Paul Russell, like we just have a really good creative synergy. He likes the stuff I do. He could send me skeleton beats. I can get people to help me finish those. We can collaborate on the videos, collaborate on the marketing, collaborate on that stuff together. And it's a win-win, right? I'm working on an album with Nick D. I'm working on 2 different projects with Nick D. You should check out Nick D if you don't know who Nick D is.
No,
we're working on a collaborative album, and we're working on an album that I'm producing for him. And like a duo album and like an album I'm producing for him. So it's like a fun, it's just like, boom, we found a synergy and we found a vibe, and it's easier to create. And I have access to certain things that most people don't have access, meaning that like a huge revenue stream of mine is sync licenses, my music being synced, licensed to YouTubers and films and ads and all that kind of stuff. The average artist doesn't have the kind of relationship I have. So someone like Nick D, who's doing really well, can partner with me musically, and I can get their music on Music Bed, that can get it into a Adidas commercial, a Google commercial, an YouTube influencers commercial.
Right.
That's valuable. You know what I'm saying? Like that's valuable. And that's what I'm trying to get people to plug into is into systems. But I don't want to just, because I could just like sign a ton of artists. They just deliver me the album. I hit upload. I put it on these platforms. The money trickles in. I'm really trying to like create together. I'm really into like the production, the sound. I think one of the things that's been missing, in my opinion, whether it's in Christian music or mainstream music, is just a lack of originality, like a lack of like, wow, this is familiar, but it's different and it's original. I want to create something, a new sound that we haven't heard yet. That's kind of what's driving me creatively now, not just like, yeah, let me just hit upload on this album. And that's cool from a business standpoint. It's dope because I could find an artist that has 1,000 followers, or in Paul Russell's case, he had less than 1,000 followers. I think he had 100 followers when we made him start his music Instagram, right? Now he's at 8,000. He just cracked 35,000 on Instagram. I could just sit back and just hit upload and make passive income off of that. But I'm much more into creating a sound and a vibe that's unique to us. Nobody can recreate that. Because again, if you're looking at it from an abundance mindset, there's only one Ruslan. There's only one Paul Russell. I'm not competing with nobody because can't nobody do what I can do. Can't nobody create the unique sound. They could do a spinoff of it. They could try to do what I do on YouTube, but nobody has my mind and my experiences. So when you're looking at it like that, it's about abundance. It's about anybody can lock in and create something of their own. And then it just becomes who can outwork who the longest, who can stay committed the longest. And I've been at it for a very long time. I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Right. And that's good. So now this is going to be a shameless plug, but I know somebody, I know a kid. You should look him up on Instagram. His name is Judah, JUDAH.mp3. Search up his stuff. That is one of my brothers.
I feel like I might have heard of him already.
Oh, Judah? You're like Judah?
Yeah. Maybe. I've heard a lot of Judas. There's a lot of Judas around. And the best bet, honestly, like what I'm doing now, my new I don't want to say breeding ground, but like my new way that I'm looking for artists is just every Friday. I don't think I cut out Patreon music review thing we do every Friday. So every Friday, people submit music. They get their music reviewed, and those are the people. That's how I discovered Nick. You know what I'm saying? Is he reached out to me, signed up on Patreon, we started working together. And there's a handful of other people that I'm like looking at, or it's people I send beats to that I'm really trying to find a vibe with, and we just haven't locked in creatively. And I found them all through my Patreon. And so it just makes the process easier. And I also have a rule of like, I don't want to partner with anybody that I haven't known for at least a year. So I want to have some form of relationship and really get to know them. And yeah, that's kind of that's so anyway, I say all that to say, tell Judah, submit something on Friday for Fan Love Friday, hop in our Zoom calls, and that's going to be the best way for him to like not just network with me, but network with a ton of other creative artists.
Bet. I'll tell him. I'll let him know, because I'm like, hey man, because that's one of the things that I'm really passionate about is the same way of how you want to create an opportunity for your artists, your partnerships to be able to get exposure. Like, yo, here's everything that you know, here's everything I know. I want you to go run with it. I'm the same. Right. Like, if I know somebody and I know somebody that can benefit off of, I'm always going to give my friend a chance. Like, hey man, here's somebody that I know that can connect you with this, like, mentorship. And I really think that's valuable, because we are living in a world that is so scarcity mindset that people are not even going to give that, when they know that this person, because I met this person, that they know that they can benefit. But you're out here too selfish. Like, everybody can win. I was having a discussion with this CEO, Evan Stewart. Great, had him on the podcast like 2 days ago. Everybody should listen to that. It was so good. And it's like, yeah, there's going to be some winners and losers, but I personally think that everybody can win if they're willing to put in the work, to be able to find the connections, 3, if they're prepared. I think preparation does definitely help in terms, but I really think there is an opportunity for everyone to win. If you want to make that choice or not, okay, that's on you. But there's more people out there, and I think it's, again, this is scripture. The more that you give, that you will receive tenfold. And I think that if you are withholding information that it can be benefit from somebody and be able to help propel them to a point where they know that they can and have that potential, let's go.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And the thing is, that's why I tend to be very generous with information, is because I can give you all the information. The truth is, the majority of folks won't apply it. Right. I can tell you how to build a business. Most people aren't going to do it. So why be scarce with the information or try to keep it? It's like, nah, like the majority of people are too scared to actually do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So now I know that you're a man of time, so I don't want to leave you too long. But these are like now my last questions at the end of the podcast. My first question for you is, one, what is one thing that you would like to see change in America?
I would like to see people not be so binary. And I think it's so much in our DNA. And so in America, not everybody, too many people jump into their echo chambers and like consume information that they already agree with. And I would just like to, like, I listen to both sides. I enjoy hearing multiple perspectives and learning from different people. And, and so I would say more, I think the stuff this is my opinion. And I got some skin in the game being politically agnostic. I think we're going to see, from a politics standpoint, we're going to see more YouTube channels like The Hill explode. Which they're like these, it's like really kind of independent. They lean left, but sometimes they're very critical of Biden. I want to see more stuff like that happen on a macro scale, where we can be honest and critical of the negative sides of both parties politically. And I think we're right there. I think there's a lot of people like myself that are just so tired of the divisiveness, so tired of the shenanigans, so tired of the fear mongering on both sides. There's a lot of fear mongering on both sides, because you got one side telling the country that if you don't vote for them, then there's going to be riots everywhere and cultural Marxism is going to take over. And it's just like the taxes are going to be too high, and, politically correctness and intersectionality. And that's going to and your kids are going to get indoctrinated into like all this stuff. That's one side. And then the other side is saying, well, if you don't vote for us, then, the racists are going to shoot you and kill you out in the streets, and police are not going to ever be held accountable, and you're going to see more rioting, and you're going to see more stuff. But now it's going to be the wild guys with the guns that are going to come and get you, and the racists are going to get you, right? It is like, come on, fam. Like, you guys are both just pandering to, or everybody's going to be poor, and we're going to see the wealth gap continuing to increase. And the issues that matter, I think both sides just got it wrong in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? And it's just unfortunate. So I want to see, one thing I could change about America is that we would listen to each other, we learn each other, and we know that both sides are wrong in a lot of ways, and both sides have some cool ideas that we should be willing to explore as curious people.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. That's really good. Second question for you. What are 3 things that you would tell to your 21-year-old self?
3 things that I would tell my 21-year-old self. I would say, take video and technology way more seriously. Learn everything you can about cameras. I would say, hey, Facebook advertising is about to be huge. Learn everything you can about Facebook advertising. And I would say, focus on developing your skill set as best as you can get it, and not being codependent on other people to create with.
That last one is real. That last one is real. Very, very real. I think all of that is so good. That is so good. That is so good. And my last question is, let me turn on the light real quick. Ugh. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy, ultimately, to be someone that, is loved by his family, loved by his friends, and ultimately someone that, helped and gave more than he took and asked for in return. If I could help people, and people show up to my funeral and be like, yo, this dude, he really sacrificed and gave me some time. He really helped me understand systems and helped me structure my businesses. And those things helped me change my family tree. I think that's ultimately what I'm after, is like helping a generation of creative people who are Christians to just see bigger, and to dream bigger, and to have tangible value that they can offer the world.
That's amazing, man. That's some great stuff, man. Thank you so much. Now this is towards the end. This is the last segment of the show. It's called the Speak Life segment, where I get to, literally, there's power, and there's power in the tongue. You can either speak life or death. And this is me speaking life over you. RuslanKD, I just want to say thank you so much for, one, for being a pioneer. I said it at the beginning, but no, for you being a pioneer and for inspiring so many young creatives, so many great Christians, for you breaking the dialogue and being able to go out there and living out what it means to be your brand outlier. And you are unafraid of the criticism that you're going to receive, but you're unafraid to be authentically yourself. And I think that there's so much power, and you have been a catalyst for people to do that. Thank you so much for your vulnerability in all your interviews, for you to be able to question, to be able to think, to be able to help a lot of people take off the mask and be able to understand that they realize that the dreams inside of them, they're able and they're feasible if they're willing to put in the work, if they're willing to network, if they're willing to learn, and that they're willing to continue to honestly be themselves, man. Thank you for who you are and who God created you to be. Thank you for being a great father, a great husband, a teacher, an educator, and also, most of all, just thank you for being a brother in Christ. And so, as a brother in Christ and you, I just want to say that I love you so much, man. Nothing but love, and I pray that you success and that you continue to achieve all the great things that God has set in your heart, man. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thanks, man. That means a lot, brother. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anyway, y'all, that is it for the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry for the little interruptions, the hiccups. It's 2020, but we out here. We out here,
man. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, we end the broadcast.